let's go, because I want to talk. This is just a great subject matter, and it's very timely. The reason I wanted to bring Mike on, because I'm getting ready to send out your business spreadsheet, building plan spreadsheet, total summary thing. It's just going to give you, some really simple goals for you to think about and to focus on, because I believe in the simplicity of inputs and outputs, which is it takes a certain number of leads to close a certain number of loans and a certain level of activity to produce those leads. And that's the business. And I've been, we say it all the time. It's not an easy business. It's a simple business though, because that's all you have to do is you talk to lots of people, it turns into leads, it becomes opportunities and credit pulls and pre-approvals and closings. And your function is to, and Mike, one of Mike White's famous lines was always, if you're not doing enough business, you're just not talking to enough people. And that's a fact. And so Mike is the guy who I've shared this story many times. Mike's the guy who, when I first coaching call asked me how many loans I was closing, and my answer was how many loans I close a month. My answer was a pretty good amount. And then he asked me how many leads I was getting, and I said, pretty good amount. And he's like, you really don't know your numbers? And I said, no. And he goes, what the fuck are you doing? And so I really didn't know. And so, the first thing that he taught me was, and Dean and Christine entered a new vernacular of this, if you can't grow your numbers, if you don't know your numbers. And so, so that's where I got it. But this is about prospecting activity. And what I'm realizing, and I'm having a lot of discussions with, especially with the more experienced among you, is that this is a business where the fact of the matter is you do reach a point where you've got so much momentum in your business with the referral partners that you've gotten business from over the years and your database, that you really can, it's not a good idea, but you really can stop being really proactively prospecting for new business. And that's one of the problems with our industry in 2022, because the game has changed and it's not like that anymore. The income potential hasn't changed, but the game has changed a little bit. And I think it's recognizing that shift has taken place. And then when you couple that 2022 reality with the two biggest problems that exist for salespeople in this industry and in the real estate industry, the first one being you get paid an awful lot of money to do one transaction. So one or two transactions and you can, quote unquote, you can make it. Right? Like you're not going to closing one or two. And it's one of the reasons that I love the mortgage business is that we sell a product. When you sell one, you get paid a lot of money. When you sell two, we double it. And when you sell three, we triple it. And there's no ceiling on your income potential, which is a great sales business. I've been in all kinds of sales industries. This was the only one that fit that bill. The other big challenge, and then I'm going to let Mike take over. The other big challenge is all of us, we love the fact that our time is our own. And it's the biggest challenge that salespeople have to overcome, is that your time is your own. I've got some quotes that I'm going to read after Mike. I'm going to let Mike take over, but that points this up. What I do believe is that you have the opportunity right now to become truly elite if you adopt a mindset that we're going to talk about. So Mike, go ahead. I hope I didn't steal any of your ideas. You have more idea. You've forgotten more about the mortgage business than I know. So go ahead.
Well, I've forgotten it only because I get older and that stuff happens. I got to get that ginkgo biloba or something to remember some of it. But, a lot of what we're looking at here is, I like to look at this and say this is my favorite part of the business is sharing stuff with new people and letting that get out there and permeate and seeing what people take from it. And I will give Dave permission to share my personal Yahoo email address so you don't get lost in the IMT coaching world where I very rarely get to see what goes there because it's intercepted and just dealt with. But if you have any questions, comments, or you want to talk about any of the things I say, because we don't have an unlimited time, feel free to email me and I'll be happy to work you through it. And even if we have to set an appointment to have a conversation to clear it up, because a lot of times a 10-minute phone call is a lot more productive than sending out about 20 emails back and forth. And I think that's something we've all come to realize is email can very quickly become, a death sentence playing back and forth if we don't, organize it. So in light of the topic, business planning to me has always been a big deal. I've been doing it for almost the entire 40 years. May of next year will be my 40th anniversary in the mortgage environment. And business planning was brought to me probably in the late 80s because somebody told me, how are you going to run a business if you don't have a plan? And that's where the whole life thing, and I'm very proud of Chris Halber looking over his shoulder. He actually looks like he's grown up. He's not that 12-year-old kid that I first met, whose biggest complaint was nobody will take me seriously because I look young. Nice to see you finally grew out of that. And you were right, because your production has reflected that. You got older and your numbers have grown higher. But I love looking down something that I think is extrapolated from our early conversations. If it's not written down, it doesn't exist. And Dave, and I think even more so his wife Lori, will tell you the countless hours of really hating my guts, going through everything and writing down every single step of everything. But
I didn't hate your guts.
Yeah, okay. You say that now because it actually worked out, but in the past you weren't so sure.
Good point.
Anyway, the big piece here is just think about this. Prospecting needs to be a priority, not an afterthought. And what you're going to go through with your business planning is really the commitment is, what am I going to do? What am I going to commit to? What is the result that I'm working toward? Because everything's achievable if you just have the plan on how you're going to get there, understanding that you're going to make adjustments along the way. And the main focus of this, and if you take nothing else away, the key thing I want you to walk away with today is there's only two reasons why people don't succeed. There's only two. A, they don't know what they're supposed to be doing. And B, they won't do what they're supposed to be doing. So I've just taken the entire most successful business practice of the entire world. I can't write a book on it, but it would be a billion seller, because that really is the secret to being successful, is finding out what it is that you need to do and then go ahead and doing it. And the first part, I've been fortunate enough to be in a position where I can help you with that. I can go through thousands of different ways that you can make money in the mortgage business, but I can't do anything about controlling the second part, is whether or not you'll come up with a list of things that you'll commit to and then go ahead and do it. And realizing as a loan officer, and again, I break these things down into simple pieces because I found if we drop things down into simple pieces, they're easier to wrap your mind around. There's three things that we do. Loan officers have three tasks in their life. You prospect for new opportunities. You process the information that you've obtained from the prospecting, and then you manage the communications of the first two things. And I put them in that order because those are the priorities. The most important thing that you're going to do is prospect for new opportunities. The second most important thing you're going to do is react to those opportunities when they happen. And then third part, you're going to manage the communications in the way that you feel works best for you. And so if you get into your mindset, nothing happens until I prospect. The problem with prospecting being the most important thing very rarely is prospecting instantly successful. So you have to prospect day one, you have to prospect day two, you have to prospect day three. You could be prospecting up to, day 50 before something that you did on day one, the cumulative effect of that turns out. Dave knows the story. When I first started in the business, I was given 5,000 pale green rate sheets that had 3 loan products on them: a 30-year fixed rate loan, a 15-year fixed rate loan, and a 6-month negative AM with a 5-year fixed payment option on it, amortized over 30 years. And the rate on that rate sheet was 15 7/8 and 5 points for the 30. And there you go. So for those of you a little squeamish around 6, 7, 8, I got started at 15, and it was a long time before we ever saw below 10. But the point was, My training was go to every real estate office you can find down this main road and drop off the rate sheets and they'll send you business. And I found out after 2 weeks of doing that, you know, I was just one of a lot of rate sheets in there. And if I didn't differentiate, we weren't going to go. And when I went back to the guy who was running the company and I said, I need a little help here. I'm the same as every other guy. His response was, and I swear to you, this is God's honest truth. No, you're not. Our rate sheets are pale green. And I was like, okay, got it. So I wasn't like everybody else, and I had the pale green rate sheet. If that was the only tool I was going to have, that was the one I was going to beat up. The reality of it is prospecting has to be put into your schedule first. The tasks that you commit to doing the prospecting needs to be written down. Again, all you got to do is look over Chris Alger's shoulder. If it's not written down, it doesn't exist. If you're not going to tell me, if you're going to prospect realtors, I want to see your plan on what are the 5, 10, 23 different tasks you're doing to make that happen. If you're going to work other professionals, accountants, financial planners, attorneys, whatever, what's your plan on getting in front of those people? If you're going to work your database, I heard, I believe it was Christine say something about birthday cards and Christmas cards. And to me, the biggest overlooked thing in the history of our business is the fact that we don't pick up the phone twice a year and wish somebody a happy birthday on their birthday, and we don't call them on their happy anniversary wishing them a happy anniversary. And most of the time, those are 30-second phone calls, because most of the time you're going to get voicemail. But I will tell you, after years and years of doing this and collecting the data, here's something that'll probably floor you. Within 3 weeks of making a birthday call to a client, there's a 15% chance you're going to get a referral from them. That's all. Just you want to pick up the phone and make a 30-second to 3-minute phone call. And yeah, 15% is not a great number, but what has Giuseppe got? What, 1,100 people, whatever, in your database that he was talking about, and probably thousands more in the past. If Giuseppe spent an hour and a half every day just calling those 3,000 people twice a year, I would willing to bet he could maintain 70% of his current business level doing nothing else because they have past experience. Okay. For younger people, it's getting out there and getting in front of people and staying in front of people and working the plan. So what I do for prospecting, get up with a comprehensive plan. And again, I push a thing called the referral triangle. And my business premise is there are 3 places that business comes from: realtors and builders on one side of the triangle, other professionals, which are your accountants, attorneys, financial planners, product and service providers, small banks and credit unions. They all fit the other side of the triangle. And then there's your database, consumer direct marketing piece. Somebody like Giuseppe or Chris, who've been here longer and are more established, should be generating between 50 and 70% of their business just from their consumer direct and their database business. Okay. Some people have stronger sides of the triangle than others. But if you start out in your mind saying, if I want to do 9 loans a month, can I get 3 from realtors, 3 from other professionals, and 3 from my database? Boy, 3 is a simple number. You just have to add 3 threes together and you get 9. And at 9 loans a month, you don't need an assistant. You don't need to work more than 45 hours. We don't need to do any of those things because, and in your marketplace with your average loan size and your commission rate, I'm thinking 9 loans a month is a pretty good income. Anybody got a problem with what would that be, like what, 500,000-600,000 if you did that?
Yeah.
Okay. Could everybody get by on that?
Probably.
I know it's tough, but you know, after the last couple of years, we might have to cut back from those 7-8 figure incomes, but struggling on 400,000 to 700,000 is not such a bad thing as opposed to struggling at 50 or 60,000. So when we look at this stuff and say what it is, we got to plug it into our weekly calendar. Now, I'm a big proponent in mixing things up. Okay. I like to take the 3 sides of the triangle, figure out what they're going to be. And then I say to myself, in a 5-day work week, notice I said 5-day work week because I don't believe anybody needs to be working 7 days a week. So my 5-day prospecting work week, I got to plug in each side of the triangle for prospecting at least once. So if you guys are heavier on realtor business and realtor relationships, you want to work the realtor side of that triangle 3 days a week with your prospecting, great. But if you commit 1 day to your database and 1 day to other professionals, before you know it, you're going to start seeing business from those areas and it will grow. Now, the other thing is in your balance, because some of us have misconceptions. Right now, everybody and their brother that was getting rich off of refinances the last couple of years, who got licenses, who have no set business, are being told all the same thing. Let's just go out there and let's go talk to a bunch of realtors and let's get in front of them and they'll send us business. And you have to be careful with that because you have to understand the limits. When I first got involved in the business, realtors controlled about 80% of purchase lead referrals. Okay, that's in 1983. Fast forward, we're in 2022, and I would argue that realtors control less than 30% of purchase lead referrals. Okay, and of that, there's probably 10% of the realtors who are really good at controlling their opportunities. And I would argue very few of you are getting referrals, even from your best agents, from the listing side of their deals. And it always amazed me as to why loan officers didn't get the lion's share of the business from listing agents, because listing agents have more control over their clients than buyer's agents do. And because you know that lister is going to sell that house and they're going to move. And most people are going to sell a house and move, buy another house, and they're probably going to need a loan. But nobody approaches those people. So why are we not getting in front of our agents' listings? And for those of you, some of you have been talking to realtors, and I guarantee you think to yourself, have you ever walked to a bunch of realtors and realtors turned around and saw you coming, immediately identified you as a pain in the ass mortgage person? And the first words out of their mouth was, I'm a listing agent. Why? Because they teach that in realtor school. Right? How to avoid the pain in the ass loan officer. If you already have enough coffee, if you already have enough free lunches, if you're already getting some dumbass to pay for your open houses and your flyers and all the other crap that you're doing that not generating any business, if you've already found that mortgage person, you don't need another sap to pay for your income. Okay, so what they do
Let me
is
stop
they
real
learn
quick.
things, rather than get into a conversation with you, right? It's like with the vampire making the sign of the cross. I'm a listing agent. And most mortgage people turn and run to you. Oh, listing agent, they're no benefit. You're about 5 times. Here's a great stat. And again, I'm running this through hundreds of loan officers with tens of thousands of attempts. Okay, this is not just, oh, well, let's just say this for the sake of saying it, because Dave knows we document everything. That's how I know it takes 5 hours to do a loan. From the time the customer calls to the time it closes. Dave was the one that gave me the number. He actually did it. Okay, and you know what? It holds up because I verified with a lot of other people how their process works, and guess what? It's right about 5 hours. But you're 3 times more likely to get a deal from a listing than you are a buyer.
So this is great. I meant to tell everybody. Mike said something when I called him this week. He goes, I know you said something along the lines of, I know I rub a lot of people the wrong way. And he does rub people the wrong way because he's so direct and he's so honest. And there's just, what's really nice about working with Mike is there's just typically no bullshit. And if you like honesty and truth and just tell me what to do, because I'll go do it, that's you should talk to Mike White. I have a question and then I open it up for questions that anybody else might have. But one of the questions that I have is, you coach a lot of people. By the way, he coaches Megan Cloud. If you know that name, Megan's at VIP, and Mike's been coaching Megan for how long?
About 8 years. I got her right out of, she got recruited by Louise Thaxton over at Fairway from Wells Fargo.
Right.
And the first time we met, she actually came to me because she was afraid to talk to me because I've got a reputation, and the people who know me, they can, Giuseppe, Dave, Chris, you can verify to the other people. I am that type of guy. If you're easily bruised and you're fragile, I don't actually say things to make you feel bad. I just say things to create awareness. And sometimes the shock value works well, and sometimes people go in the corner and cry. And I sat with a woman named Christy Solar on the Fairway panel. She was the rookie of the year, her first year in the business. Okay, first full year in the business, she closed 203 units. And so we were on a panel, we were talking about how she did it and blah, blah, blah. And Megan was impressed by that, but she was afraid to talk to me. So she ran into my wife and in the ladies' room of all places, and they started talking. And the next thing I know, I went to back to my hotel room, and my wife explained to me that Megan Cloud was going to be the first recipient of the Improve My Tomorrow coaching scholarship fund, and that I was going to coach her for free because she said so. And being a good husband and realizing the cost of my first divorce, I didn't want a second divorce. I said, yes, ma'am, and proceeded to do that. And as you know, Megan's doing, oh, by the way, and she got fired from Fairway because they didn't like her systems because they were more efficient than what Louise's systems were, and it rubbed people the wrong way. So they actually fired her. And I'll give you a caveat to that, Dave. On Monday, she was actually recruited by I think I told you, by the Fairway area manager who is trying to get her to come to work for Fairway. And she said, clearly you didn't do your research before you approached me, because you'd have found out you guys fired me a few years ago. And secondly, how do you like your job? Because I've got a better way. And so he said, well, that's the first time I've ever had the table turned on me. And that's what Megan's really good at. But yeah.
So on the coaching side of this, what do you, because I know I'm there, I wasn't expecting, and I hope nobody was expecting the magic pill, simple, oh, here's all you have to do. It does just come down to scheduling time to do specific work in your calendar, and then having it talk about that. Because the biggest challenge people have in this business is that you think everything is negotiable, even though you scheduled activity that, and I think of all the people that are here, I know that Christine, you're one of the best at this. You extremely disciplined with your calendar and your scheduling. Like, I'm going to prospect for 3 hours. That's what I'm going to do. But it's rare. And you came from a different world. You came from the copier sales world, but it's such a rarity in our space. And I think it's one of the biggest challenges that, and I've had, Jacqueline and I were talking about this yesterday. She goes, yeah, it happens to me all the time. I say I'm going to do it, and then something happens. I get a call or an email comes over, and then I don't do it. And my argument back to her at the time was, but if you had an appointment with the realtor, so let's say you got an email that somebody wants to get pre-approved and pulling your credit, but you were on the way to an appointment with the realtor, you wouldn't call the realtor and cancel the appointment. You'd keep that appointment. And that thought process is the biggest challenge that people have to overcome. And I'm curious, Mike, as to what you would say about how you coach to that beyond just what I know you're probably going to say, which is like, just fucking do it. But how do you coach to that? Like, how do you coach to that? Because that discipline and that discipline, which is the word that everybody, it sounds like it's a negative thing, but that's the challenge. That's what I see people struggle to overcome every day of their career.
It's part of the reason that my business is the way it is, and I don't have any other people that coach for me, because it's hard to try to explain, to teach people, because it is so different people. There's no magic pill. There's no one thing. Okay. And you look at all successful people. Dave is not the same as Giuseppe, who's not the same as Chris, who's not the same as Megan, people that you can readily identify who are highly successful in the mortgage business. Some of the things they have common, they share common things, but the point comes down to putting this stuff on paper and finding out, when I coach people, is what are they trying to accomplish? What are their priorities? What are they willing to do? Because you can have all the things in the world. Like, okay, I sit here now, I happen to know for a fact I weigh 256 pounds. A few years ago, I weighed 318 pounds. I've been as low in the last 10 years as 232 pounds, okay? And I know what it takes to lose weight and all the other things that you need to do. And the point is, can you commit? What will you do, and will you commit to it? Right? It's always that commitment to looking at this and saying, hey, what do I do going forward? And who are your accountability partners? I get hired for any number of reasons. And sometimes it's to come in and blow things up. Dave is aware of that. I remember one time came out to Denver, right? And we were there in September, and I wrote that thing on the whiteboard.
Yeah.
He had, I don't know, 6 or 8 loan officers at the time. And after a couple of days with these loan officers, I didn't have a very high opinion of them. And I happened to look at the calendar, and I wrote on the whiteboard just before I left to go to the airport, and of course, Dave didn't know I was going to do this. So much to his horror, I had a little poem, and it says, you know, it's 3 months until Christmas. Let us all scream and shout. You need to get your shit together or get the fuck out. And they were horrified. And the truth was, everybody but one person was gone before the 90 days. I knew just looking at this group, nobody would commit to actually doing the process. They would rather fight and argue and not succeed. See, having a reason to be a victim and to not succeed is often a bigger priority in people's lives than achieving what they say they want. Because here's the thing is, we can wish for stuff.
Say that again. Say that again.
People often would rather fail, not succeed, not achieve, because it's easier and it's much more common. It's a bigger club, if you will, right? The people who will sit on the sidelines and complain. Anybody, Chris, Dave, Giuseppe can tell you, the people, Megan will sit there and knows the very simple fact, when you succeed at a high level, more people than that, they'll look you in the eye and they'll shake your hand and tell you how great it is to be you. And to other people in their same social or their same business acumen, they'll sit around and say, the only reason Giuseppe closed $100 million is he was lucky, or he was this, or it was that, or they got all these other reasons why it's him. The reason Giuseppe closes 100 million is he gets off his ass and goes to work every day. Okay? And in your market, that's it. Megan does what she does because she gets off her ass and she gets up and goes to work every day. She knows what works for her. She has a plan and she executes. Okay? It's not that hard, guys. I graduated high school. I have like a 103 IQ. All right? I am not the brightest light in the stream of bulbs. You'll never see me on Broadway, okay? But I have made a damn good career on figuring out how you make money in this business. And this business is not for everybody, but it can be, because I'm committed. Everybody here, Pastor, the hardest thing to do in the mortgage business is read and write on an 8th grade level and tell the truth. When I had somebody call me and they wanted me to come help train their people. So what are the attributes to a really high producing loan officer? And I said, they got to be able to read and write on an 8th grade level, and they got to be able to tell the truth. And he was waiting for like this whole other thing. And I said, yeah, you'd be surprised how hard that is. I know you can read and write on the 8th grade level because you passed your NMLS test, right? You'd be surprised at the number of people can't do that. But if you look at history, this business is incredibly, and I know where Dave gets it from. There's nothing easy about this business, nothing, but it's incredibly simple. And you can sit there and schedule a 40 to 45 hour work week, okay? And you can close 8 to 10 loans a month by yourself without any help and live a really great and powerful life. And I don't know what it'd take us 10, 12 years to get Giuseppe to put the phone away before he took 2 weeks off to go to Italy. And I screamed at him, do not take your phone, buy the burner phone. Giuseppe will verify this story. Because, again, this sounds stupid, but as a coach and as somebody who mentors people, proudest moments in my life is when Giuseppe left his phone home and went to Italy for 2 weeks. I would have bet you money that he'd never be able to do that, okay? Because the hardest part he ever had to make in the business was giving up control and hiring an assistant. How many assistants did he go through before we found one that stuck? And we realized Hey, it's not the assistant. It's Giuseppe's treating of that assistant and understanding he's got to let it go. Right? That was before Frozen came out. Hey, gee, we could have made billions if we only knew, if we could have sung. We should have got Jacqueline to sing it. Damn it. We see another opportunity we missed. But the point I'm trying to make here, guys, don't be intimidated. Be empowered. We are at the precipice of the greatest piece of time that we're going to have in the mortgage industry. Giuseppe nailed it. He didn't know he nailed it per se, but in a Facebook post he put out there where he couldn't wait for the next 50,000 bad loan officers to get the hell out of the business. Exactly. Because there's one thing I bet you don't know. We're looking to close just under 6 million residential sales in 2022. 6 million of them. So if you want to think back to with the good old days when, well, guess what? That's only 150,000 less houses than we sold in 2021. It's more houses than that were sold in 2020. And again, you can Google this. Google, my favorite thing, to pull up the real data. Okay. And before you start saying, oh, well, interest rates. Hey, guys, it ain't about rates. It's about payments. Number one, it's never about rate. It's always about payment. So get rates out of your mind because we don't control rate. But the point with this is you want to know, okay, the last time we closed 6 million units, you want to go back? All right, 6 million units in 2006. Last time we sold 6 million units, 2006, 6.52 million units. Interest rates were 6.41 plus a point. 2005, the peak, 7 million units. Interest rates, 5.87 plus 0.7 of a point. You can Google search, you can pull those facts up. The reality of it is we're going to clean out the riffraff, and the people who are personally connected to their people, their clients, their referral partners, and their sources, personally connected, are going to dominate, which is why all the big layoffs are coming off of all the big companies that were internet driven, who were online driven, who were television commercial driven. That's where the layoffs are coming from. Plus the other guys who were mismanaged and just thought we were never going to stop doing, billions of refis a year.
Right.
So I get it, but you've got to be encouraged. The biggest fortunes ever made in history are always made in downward trends, never upward trends. We are in a downward trend. That's okay. We're going to get back to normal. We got a long way to go. And for each and every one of you, was it 100 loans? Right?
Well,
you do 100 loans a year and you're making, you're making bank.
Yeah.
So
So
if we're doing 6 million, go get your 100.
Yeah. So do you, and I asked the question, I'm not sure you answered it, but is it that it's just, you have to schedule it and you have to treat it like a non-negotiable appointment, like you would any other appointment?
Absolutely.
When it comes to prospecting.
Here's the thing. Jacqueline went for an ultrasound today, right?
Yeah.
Why? I mean, I don't need to know the medical reason why.
No.
Because that's when it was scheduled, right?
Yeah.
But this call was here and she knows that they got this man, right? This was here, right?
Yep.
One was a priority, wasn't it?
Yeah, exactly.
Okay. Is that, and I'm not saying that you can't change your priorities if you get a different opportunity. I forgot who said, and I apologize, I should have taken notes, that they were at some sort of a function and ran into the husband of somebody whose wife was a key figure in your real estate market, right?
Right.
Somebody brought that up and what they were thankful for.
Yeah.
Okay. So you play 6 degrees of separation. He went to that event not knowing how it was going to work out. If that woman called him on the phone wanting to talk to him, he's going to schedule that appointment. And if that appointment was right now, he wouldn't be here. But if he has the opportunity to schedule, and Dave, I love your scheduling thing. I think we have to thank, what was it? Giuseppe was the one we have to thank for finding that one or whatever.
Yeah, Calendly.
Boy, wish I would have had that back when I was younger.
Right.
But that is a requirement, man. That is bird dogging the right thing, because you don't waste your time playing phone tag and email tag. And again, Dave, I will call you. Note to everybody, I have not answered a telephone in over 20 years. The only time I ever answer a telephone is when I call for a coaching call or an appointment and the person doesn't pick up and I leave them 5 minutes to call me back. If they call back within those 5 minutes, I answer the phone. My children, my wife, everybody who knows me, send me a text message and we'll schedule time if we have to talk. Or send me an email and we'll schedule a time when we have to talk. There is no money in answering the phone. Zero. Dave, you had a receptionist, right?
No.
Oh, why?
Well, it's 2022. You kind of don't need them.
Okay.
Just because.
And the point is, and if that person was needed, it wouldn't be your highest paid player on your team.
No.
Right. So that's exactly what answering the phone does.
Yeah.
See, the myth behind I answer the phone 24/7, 365 is exactly that. Nobody respects you if you don't respect your own time.
Normally this ends at about 9:45. So I appreciate everybody hanging around. I'm going to just read a quote from, and then I'm going to share this later today when I send out the video. I'll send out at the end of the day, but this was a quote in the book Shift, which was written by Gary Keller after the mortgage meltdown. I've referred to this book several times, and this is as it relates to prospecting and scheduling prospecting activity in your calendar. And this is a quote from one of the big producing agents. My job is to follow my schedule. And if I do that, everything works. If I don't do that, I should be fired. That's what happens out in the real world. Now, I've shared this with a couple of you, and I'll try to I was a checker at one time in my life, and I eventually became an assistant store manager. I had a shift that I had to show up. I was a scheduled thing. I had to show up at a specific time and do my job. And for 2 hours, and then I got to take a break, and I got to, walk about. I had 15 minutes to get back to my check stand and start checking again. When I was an assistant manager, I had to walk the store. I had to fill out these reports. I had to turn them in every day. Like, those are jobs, and those are the kinds of disciplines. And I was working for King Soopers, which is one of the most successful grocery chains on the planet, because they had all these written policies and procedures and systems that they followed. And that's what it is, because if you didn't do that, you would get fired. And yet I could make, I was getting paid $36,000 a year to be an assistant store manager in 1986. And I never wanted to get promoted to store manager because they started at 42 grand. And I was like, no fucking way I'm not doing this. I'm going to go do something else. I can make more money. 42 grand was never going to work for me. But that's what that job is. This job, if you are that committed to a schedule, can produce $500,000 a year in income. And it is the most challenging thing that you've got to think about as we get ready to do this business planning, and think about that commitment, because you can truly become elite in this industry, and you can become an elite performer, because the competition is really us. It's not them. It's not another loan officer. The competition is yourself. Are you going to do what you said you were going to do and prospect consistently and make it a non-negotiable appointment in your calendar, the way Jacqueline made her ultrasound a non-negotiable appointment? Like, I have to go to my ultrasound. And so that's it. It's adopting that mindset, which will make all the difference. I'll share some more from that. Mike, I will send out your email address if anybody wants to reach out to Mike and talk to him. He's tough, and he's honest, and he's brutal, and he's got the biggest heart of almost anybody I know. I had to call him once and convince him to work for free for a few months when I was really struggling with something. I couldn't afford to pay him, and he did that. And so, just one of the nicest guys that you'll ever want to meet. So I encourage you to reach out to him if you want to talk to him. And I appreciate the very gracious offer, Mike. So thank you very much for your time. I appreciate everybody's coming on today, and let's have a great Friday, everybody. Thank you. Thanks, Mike.
Hey, take care.
Bye.